A very good morning, everybody. Hope you all are studying with full motivation. And without any further ado, I am here to help your preparation for current affairs easier. Let us recap some of the events for the day, which you have to prepare for both prelims and mains point of view. The biggest news of the country has been the recently announced India European Union FTA. It has been hailed as the mother of all FTAs. It has been hailed as the biggest trade deal that the country has done so far. Let us revise some of the facts regarding this trade deal. India EU free trade agreement. Now, why has it been called a very large trade deal? Why is it such a big deal in the entire world economy? It is because two economically very large body, India, which is the fourth largest economy, and European Union, which is collectively the second largest economy of the world, together accounting for 25% of the global GDP and accounting for one third of the global trade, have come together to make trade for each other easier. With this trade deal, EU becomes India's 22nd FTA partner. To give you a little backstory why it has been such an achievement for the country, trade negotiations have been ongoing since 2007. European Union became a strategic partner for India in 2004, where we officially launched our relations with them, diplomatic ties with them. However, due to some gaps in ambition, the trade deal was called off in 2013 and relaunched again in 2022. So it took almost 2 decades for us to finalize this trade deal. Now, let us also talk about what is the state of bilateral trade right now. Currently, India and EU's bilateral trade has been increasing steadily. If we talk about goods trade, it is valued at around $136 billion. And to also know a point worth noting, India runs a trade surplus with the European Union. It means our exports to European Union are much higher than our imports. The same can be seen in the figure. If we talk about the service trade, it is again valued as $83 billion. These are some of the headlines from leading newspapers in today and yesterday. India, as I just talked about, this is hailed as one of the biggest trade deal ever and also as the mother of all deals. This also comes from the fact the sheer scale, the sheer size of the trade between the two countries, which we just discussed previously. Let us get into details as to what are the key benefits. When I talk about trade in goods, India has benefited by receiving preferential market access. We will discuss quickly what is preferential market access, but let's discuss in detail which sectors are to benefit for our country. It is everywhere talked about that the beneficiaries are labor intensive sectors, mainly textile and apparel. EU is India's second largest market for India's apparel and textile after the United States of America. With this FTA, this sector is going to get an even further push. How? Because tariffs are going to be eliminated up to 10% from day one of the launch of this deal. From all the exports that we did, around from $133 billion, close to $33 billion is for these sectors for which tariff is going to be reduced, which accounts for one third of our trade in goods. Additionally, some sectors including leather and footwear, marine products, gems and jewelry, and automobiles are some sectors which are going to benefit from the trade agreement. It is also worth noting that India has been able to protect its sensitive sectors, including agriculture and livestock and dairy, for which India has retained some provisions and some autonomy from the trade agreement. Talking about trade in services, there is certainty of market access and non discriminatory treatment. We all know that India is a service surplus country. Are a service export led economy. हम अपनी सर्विस का हर कंट्री के साथ ट्रेड सरप्लस ही मेंटेन करते हैं. Because of that, India often gets discriminatory treatment with various trade partners. But with this trade deal, we are set to get market access and non discriminatory treatment, especially for three sectors: IT and IT enabled electronic services, professional services such as doctors, accountants, and educational services. To complement these, we also are allowing mobility for professionals. How we are going to facilitate all this mobility by providing short term visits, temporary stays, and business travels in both the directions, whether it is India granting access to the European Union countries or European Union countries granting access to Indian professionals. There are also mutual commitments for business visitors, entry and work sites for dependents, family, increasing Indian diaspora in the European Union economies. It is imperative for India also to have some access to these economies as visitors, as tourists, as family members visiting our family members. So the FTA makes those provisions much simpler and easier. This is not just limited to trade in goods, services, and mobility of professionals. There have also been provisions inserted about social security and traditional knowledge. For example, practitioners of Indian traditional medicine, such as Ayurveda, are allowed to work under the home title in EU countries where such practices are otherwise not regulated. But now they are going to have some legal mechanism, some way through which our Indian social traditional knowledge practitioners can go and set up their professional practices there. We are also going to collaborate on digital technologies, whether it is payment systems, whether it is any other kind of digital innovation such as UPI. We are going to be constantly sharing knowledge via the FTA and constantly facilitating each other's digital and emerging technologies. Let us quickly recap two terms which are being used on the trade agreement, used everywhere on the news site, and which has an exam orientation which we need to know about. The first is preferential tariffs. अगर मैं सिंप्लीफाई करूं, द वर्ड प्रेफरेंशियल मीन्स हम किसी को प्रेफरेंस दे रहे हैं, प्रेफरेंस दे रहे हैं. अब किसी को प्रेफरेंस कैसे देंगे? या तो उनके लिए एक्सेस इजी कर देंगे, उनके लिए हमारी इकोनॉमी का एक्सेस इजी कर रहे हैं. अगर मैं अपनी कंट्री में टैरिफ्स को रिड्यूस कर दूं फॉर अ स्पेसिफिक कंट्री, ताकि ट्रेड ईजियर हो जाए, ताकि उस कंट्री के साथ ट्रेड हमारा ईजी हो, सस्ता हो जाएगा, देयर विल बी हायर इंपोर्ट्स और एक्सपोर्ट्स, उनको बोलते हैं प्रेफरेंशियल टैरिफ्स. असेंशली यूरोपियन यूनियन क्या कर रहा है? यूरोपियन यूनियन इंडियन प्रोडक्ट्स पर टैरिफ्स रिड्यूस कर रहा है. टैरिफ्स which is in the form of import duty or export duty, customs, वो सारे mechanisms को वो reduce कर रहा है ताकि इंडियन को एक easier access हो जाए to the European Union markets. इसको बोलते हैं preferential tariffs. Now, we need to differentiate it with another principle known as the MFN principle, which is the most favored nation principle. Both of these are WTO compliant. दोनों ही WTO rules के साथ comply करते हैं. One of them is not against the rules. Both of them are compliant. But difference क्या है? प्रेफरेंशियल टैरिफ्स के केस में मैं अपनी कुछ स्पेसिफिक प्रेफर्ड कंट्रीज के लिए टैरिफ्स को रिड्यूस कर रही हूँ, स्पेसिफिक कंट्रीज के लिए मैं ट्रेड को आसान बना रही हूँ. बट MFN स्टेटस जब लगता है, आई इम्पोज इक्वल टैरिफ्स फॉर ऑल कंट्रीज. दैट इज द डिफरेंस. प्रेफरेंशियल टैरिफ, वर्ड प्रेफरेंस आते ही हमें पता होना चाहिए कोई स्पेसिफिक कंट्री को मैं प्रेफर कर रही हूँ. बट MFN की जब बात होती है, आई एम ट्रीटिंग ऑल ट्रेड पार्टनर्स equally. Both of these are WTO compliant. The second term which is constantly being talked about is reciprocal market access. ये बड़े छोटे बच्चों वाली बात है. मैंने तुम्हें टॉफी दी तो तुम मुझे टॉफी दोगे. India and EU are going to open market for each other on the premise that the other country is going to open the market for me. मैं EU के प्रोडक्ट्स को मार्केट एक्सेस दे रही हूँ, इसलिए EU मुझे अपनी मार्केट का एक्सेस दे रही है. दिस इज व्हाट इज नोन एज रेसिप्रोकल मार्केट एक्सेस. Again, this is also WTO compliant. It is not against the WTO rules. Providing reciprocal market access is also within the compliance, within the rules of WTO. Let's move forward. Geopolitical significance. Now, very talked about deal. Different countries' ministers have been sending in their comments, sending in their warmest regards for both the economies. Why is it such an important time, or what is so certain, what is so important for this time of the year? Now, there are two reasons. There is rising global uncertainty in the Trump 2.0 era, as people term it, and in the rising China hegemony in different countries. This trade deal comes at a time where we can challenge the two, where we can diversify from the two economies. ये चैलेंज कर रहा है बहुत अच्छे से हमारी हेजिमनी को ऑफ यूएसए एंड चाइना, which is why it is being hailed as a very iconic trade deal. For both European Union and India, we needed certainty in terms of diversification of our trades. We need certainty in terms of diversification of our goods and services. So this trade deal is going to mark a changing point, a turning point for world trade dynamics everywhere. Secondly, इंडिया को स्पेसिफिकली क्या बेनिफिट मिल रहा है? अभी तक इंडिया वाज कंपीटिंग विद इकोनॉमीज लाइक बांग्लादेश एंड वियतनाम बिकॉज उनको एक लेसर टैरिफ ऑलरेडी मिल रहा था. They were developing economies. India was at a disadvantage against these economies with the European Union. We were constantly competing with Bangladesh for textile exports. But with this FTA, with the preferential market access, with the reciprocal market access, with the preferential reduced tariffs, we are now going to be at a competing edge which is equal for both India and Bangladesh. We no longer are at a disadvantage from these economies. That is why globally all the economies have hailed this, and all the economies are seeing it as an example of how trade deals should be formed. Let us move to the next topic. Today is the International Data Privacy Day. It is celebrated annually on the 28th of January. अब हम ये डे क्यों सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हैं? It is a global observance to raise awareness about data privacy and responsible data practices. The practice of celebrating or observing this day started in 2006 when the first ever legally binding treaty on data protection was signed. The 2026 theme was prioritize privacy by design. हम धीरे धीरे इन अ चेंजिंग इकोनॉमी, इन अ चेंजिंग सिनेरियो इन द वर्ल्ड, अब हमारा हर काम डिजिटली इनेबल्ड है. A drawback of being digitally enabled, of being digitally connected, is the threat of data invasion or the privacy invasion. ये डे हमें रिमाइंड करता है, it serves as a reminder of how we need to protect data, how we need to protect people's privacy, how we need to strengthen our data security systems. Let us also talk about India's digital footprint in continuation for this. India is currently the world's third largest digital economy. हमारे digital platforms हमारी everyday life में बहुत अच्छे से integrate हो चुके हैं. For example, आधार कार्ड. आधार कार्ड जब से आया है, now every service that we have to take online, whether it is booking flight tickets, whether it is taking admissions, whether any forms that all the students might be filling, it is always connected with Aadhaar, and that is how our lives is now digitally connected. हमारा data के through connection आ चुका है. There are some data points entered from PIB. वो कह रहे हैं increase in Aadhaar generated from 126 crores to 143 crores. Our UPI transaction value has increased from 2 lakh crore to 27 lakh crores. हमारे ब्रॉडबैंड सब्सक्राइबर्स हैव इंक्रीज्ड फ्रॉम 72 करोड़ टू ओवर 100 करोड़ फ्रॉम द शेयर अफोर्डेबिलिटी ऑफ आवर ब्रॉडबैंड सर्विसेज. हमने इतनी अच्छी से इंडिया के डिजिटली कनेक्ट कर दिया है. To talk about data privacy, India also has taken some steps to protect our citizens' data and to protect their privacy, starting with the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. ये एक citizen centric law है governing personal data, imposing certain rights and safeguards. साथ में ही 2025 last year there were digital personal data protection rules which were operationalizing the previous said act. There are some other acts as well which also have provisions, which also have safeguards for our privacy and for our data protection, which include Information Technology Act of 2000 and the IT rules of 2021, which provide cyber governance and intermediary due diligence. Let us talk about some of the rights which have been provided to us using these rules and acts. These include right to consent, access, correct, update, erase personal data. There is also mandatory response from data handlers within 90 days. Even if you have continued keeping a check on current affairs, only recently Ministry of Home Affairs also set up a standard operating procedure for handling cyber fraud cases. उन्होंने एक standard operating procedure बना दिया wherein they also put up an emergency number. उन्होंने एक इमरजेंसी नंबर निकाला फॉर वैल्यूज अप टू 50,000, चाहे आपकी लाखों में हो चाहे आपकी करोड़ों में हो। अगर आपके साथ कोई साइबर फ्रॉड हुआ है, यू कैन दे हैव सेट अप अ स्टैंडिंग ऑपरेटिंग procedure. So you must go back for this month's current affairs and check it out how India is constantly protecting data privacy. Another news that has been and which will be there for the week is the India Energy Week 2026. We have started the India Energy Week 2026. Our host for this year is Goa. It is being held in Goa. It is India's flagship global energy platform which brings together global leaders. It is a conversation starter for how we are going to meet with energy demands, which is only going to rise here on. So India brings together world leaders from different domains, political, economical, environmental, science, technology. सबको इकट्ठे लाते हैं. We initiate a dialogue on how to meet our growing energy requirements and that sustainably. A talked about concept in this week's dialogues has been the concept of energy addition. जब भी हमारी सस्टेनेबल एनर्जी की तरफ बात होती है, हमें लगता है वी नीड टू रिप्लेस आर ओल्ड अनसस्टेनेबल पोल्यूटिंग और mechanisms which are not environment friendly, हमें उनको रिप्लेस करने की बात होती है. दैट इज नोन एज एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन. पर इंडिया के एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन विजन में देयर इज ऑल्सो अ टर्म बाय द नेम ऑफ एनर्जी एडिशन. हम ये नहीं कह रहे कि हमारा ऑब्जेक्टिव सिर्फ ये है कि पुराने ओल्ड मेथड्स को रिप्लेस कर दो और नए मेथड्स ले आओ. एनर्जी एडिशन की जब हम बात करते हैं, वी वांट टू ऐड न्यू सोर्सेज ऑफ एनर्जी इनटू द करंट एनर्जी मिक्स. वी डू नॉट वांट टू रिप्लेस ऑल कोल बेस्ड एनर्जी right away. It is not sustainable, it is not feasible and we acknowledge that. हम जब एनर्जी एडिशन की बात करते हैं, हम बोल रहे हैं कि उस एनर्जी मिक्स के अंदर हम और सस्टेनेबल सोर्सेस को ऐड करना चाहते हैं. Let us talk in detail about what is the addition of these sources. These sources come from a diverse range, whether it is oil, biofuel, green hydrogen, LPG, LNG. इंडिया अपनी कुछ पॉलिसीज के बारे में इंडिया एनर्जी वीक में कॉन्स्टेंटली बात कर रहा है. What are these policies? One of these is open acreage licensing policy. ये 2016 में एक पॉलिसी स्टार्ट हुई थी wherein we allowed private sector companies to show some expression of interest. अगर उन्हें लगे कि इस एरिया में आफ्टर देयर एनालिसिस, आफ्टर एनालिसिस विद द कंसर्न मिनिस्ट्रीज, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ अर्थ साइंस, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ पेट्रोलियम एंड नेचुरल गैस, इन मिनिस्ट्री के साथ, इन मिनिस्ट्री के डेटा के एनालिसिस पर अगर उन्हें लगता है there is chances of hydrocarbon exploration, which is oil and gas, shale gas exploration in these areas. So throughout the years, these companies can express interest, they can bid, and if convinced with their analysis, the government can grant them portions of area, portions of sedimentary blocks to explore these areas for oil and natural gas reserves. This was done in the open acreage licensing policy, which kind of liberalized our oil exploration methods. Then we know there has been a rapid expansion of LPG coverage and clean cooking access. आपको याद होगा, there was a scheme by the name of Ujjwala Yojana where we are providing LPG cylinders either at a lower cost and in subsequent phases कुछ cases में हम free refills भी provide करते हैं, free cooking stoves भी provide करते हैं for easy portability. Done, all of it is done to promote a cleaner cooking fuel. तो हमने इन सारी बात चीज़ों के बारे में डिस्कशन अब इस इंडिया एनर्जी वीक में की है. As and when more discussions come in, we will come and discuss important points with you. There is also talk about India UAE energy partnership in the week. ऐसा कोई लंबा चौड़ा agreement साइन नहीं हुआ है, but UAE ministers one of the important delegations. They were one of the guests which were seen in yesterday's events. Therefore, they also talked about how we need to make a reliable supply of crude, LNG and LPG on long-term trust-based cooperation. There is also news about Goa's initiatives. Goa, which is hosting the event, is talking about 100% renewable energy by 2050. उन्होंने बोला है कि हमें अपनी सारी एनर्जी रिक्वायरमेंट्स 2050 में शिफ्ट करनी है, 2050 तक रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी पर शिफ्ट करनी है. दैट इज देयर लॉन्ग टर्म विजन. They are also tapping green and blue economies. Naturally, it is a coastal state, तो blue economy sustainably हमें marine resources को extract करना है, which is also on their long-term vision. Next, very, very important point from both prelims and mains point of view, especially for the coming prelims. We have launched 2 pan-India surveys. हमारी एक concerned ministry, MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, जो involved है country के data collection, analysis and breakdown में, उन्होंने 2 pan-India surveys को launch किया है. The training and the groundwork for this is started. Both the surveys will be starting in April of this year. We need to understand both these surveys and the importance of conducting these right now. The first survey is the National Household Income Survey. It is a pan-India survey to annually estimate household incomes. अब हमें हर घर की इनकम के बारे में क्यों पता होना चाहिए, ताकि हमें माइक्रो लेवल पे जब हमारे पास डेटा कलेक्शन होगा, हम मैक्रो लेवल पे उसकी पॉलिसीज बना पाएंगे. इफ वी हैव डेटा रिलेटेड टू इनकम्स, we will have data related to consumptions, we will have data related to socio-economic distribution of our economy. Such a survey was missing, such data gap was there, and therefore one of the surveys that had been announced was National Household Income Survey. Aim is to fill long-standing data gaps on income distribution and socio-economic regions across socio-economic conditions across different regions. The second survey, Annual Survey of Incorporated Service Sector Enterprises. ये भी एक हमने डेटा कलेक्शन के लिए एक सर्वे लॉन्च किया है, which will collect data on service sector enterprises with legal incorporation, जिसका essentially मतलब है which are formal organizations, वो formal sector का हिस्सा है. अगर आपको याद हो, there is also a survey by the name of ASUSE, Annual Survey of Unincorporated Sector Enterprises. Seemingly similar, सुनने में एक जैसे हैं, पर इनमें कुछ मेजर डिफरेंसेस हैं. ASUS में हम अनइनकॉर्पोरेटेड एंटरप्राइजेस की डेटा कलेक्ट कर रहे हैं. अनइनकॉर्पोरेटेड का मतलब इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर की फॉर्म्स का डेटा कलेक्ट कर रहे हैं. और यहाँ पे बात की गई थी कि नॉन एग्रीकल्चर अनइनकॉर्पोरेटेड एंटरप्राइजेस, वो कौन से हुए? मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, ट्रेड एंड सर्विसेज. इन तीनों सेक्टर्स के अनइनकॉर्पोरेटेड मतलब इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर के एंटरप्राइजेस का डेटा हम कलेक्ट कर रहे थे अंडर ASUSE. अब यहाँ पे बच कौन सा गया? द इनकॉर्पोरेटेड, दैट इज द फॉर्मल सेक्टर. फॉर्मल सेक्टर में सर्विस सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस का डेटा अब हम कलेक्ट कर रहे हैं विद दिस न्यू सर्वे विच इज द एनुअल सर्वे ऑफ इनकॉर्पोरेटेड सर्विस सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस. Please make sure you know the difference. This, I will repeat, this is for unincorporated non-agriculture enterprises. इसमें भी सर्विस सेक्टर का कुछ पोर्शन है. यहाँ पे सर्विस सेक्टर का जो पोर्शन है, इट इज फॉर इनकॉर्पोरेटेड और फॉर्मल सेक्टर सर्विस organizations. Why did we need that? Because we need to track service sector performance and their contribution to GDP and employment. I hope this is clear. ये वाला सर्वे जो है 2021-22 से एनुअली कंडक्ट किया जा रहा है. दिस सर्वे, इसकी फर्स्ट एडिशन इज बीइंग हेल्ड कमिंग इन द कमिंग ईयर. हमें डेटा कलेक्शन इतना इंपॉर्टेंट क्यों है? If you have tracked current affairs for the rest of the year or last year, you must remember that India has been under sharp scrutiny from various international organizations based on our data collection methodologies. और बोल रहे हैं कहीं ना कुछ लैकिंग है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, IMF ने हमें एक C ग्रेड दिया था फॉर अ GDP एस्टिमेशन मेथडोलॉजी. उन्होंने बोला था कुछ ना कुछ लैकिंग है. ऐसे ही थ्रू आउट द ईयर हमें कहीं ना कहीं डेटा गैप्स फील हुआ है. We have been under strict supervision or we have been under scrutiny, criticism for these reasons. ये रियलाइज करते हुए हमारी गवर्नमेंट धीरे धीरे डेटा ड्रिवन पॉलिसी की तरफ जा रही है, एंड वी हैव बीन डूइंग अ लॉट ऑफ सर्वेज, a lot of practices for data collection. So these two surveys are also in the same direction. हम चाहते हैं हमारी policies हमारी ground realities को reflect करें, उनको solve करें, हमारी एक data driven policy making हो, ऐसा ना हो कि हमारी country को X चीज की जरूरत है and due to lack of data हम Y steps लिए जा रहे हैं. So we need the two to be coherent. We need our policies to reflect our ground requirements, which is why we are being conducting all these surveys. That will be all for today, students. Please keep preparing, and I hope this will be very, very helpful to you. All the very best. Please continue to prepare. Thank you.